Hello, the YouTubes. You guys know my good friend Pastor Jonathan Fisk has written this new book, Echo, which just came out, and I've just started reading it, and it's a fantastic book. But I had a chance to talk to him. In fact, I guest co-hosted his podcast, Raw, and we recorded that as well. So the first 15 minutes of that conversation was recorded on this video, and I'm going to play it for you now. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it gives you insight into this book, and that if you would find this to be helpful for you or for your family, I hope you'll go pick some copies up. So I wanted to say welcome to Rev Fisk Raw. I'm your host, Pastor Bryan Wolfmueller. Doesn't that sound nice? I think just take it over. You know, that's right. Welcome back, Pastor Fisk, from your mission trip to Margaritaville. How was the Cayman Islands?
They were great. They were great. Are we in video? We're going?
Yeah, we're videoing. We're live on the YouTube.
Hi. It was great. It was good. It was strangely actually a mission trip and not just a vacation, although I did a little vacationing in there. It's a stunning situation. They find themselves.
You paused, by the way.
Not in the Caribbean, sort of. What's that?
You died out there a little bit for me, but I got you back now. So,
okay. Most of the islands in the Caribbean have a very clear culture, I think. This island is like the melting pot of the Caribbean. 41 nationalities and languages represented on the island. And so, trying to plant a standard Missouri Synod WASP, if I can say it, congregation, not the easiest thing, not the most likely thing to succeed. So trying to help them think through those things while also being there. I got to visit a Cuban internment camp for refugees that are seeking asylum. They basically put in a concentration camp, not the kind that kill you, but the kind they don't let you out of. And fascinating stuff. I enjoyed it immensely.
Now, the reason why I wanted to have you as my guest on Raw today, this is so great, is because you've written a new book.
Just to say that.
Hey, yeah, that's just the only. You've got the new book. Congratulations, by the way. I mean, this is no easy task, summiting the 14er of another book, but you published the book Echo, truth unbroken truth that should be broken 7 times. What's the name of it again?
It's just like that. It's called marketing, Bryan. It's called marketing. Echo, unbroken truth worth repeating again. And the again is again and again, right? The idea is to overstate the case that we shouldn't stop saying this stuff, which we'll talk about that more when we get to the title itself, I'm sure.
Yeah. So what's the idea? So I know you've talked about it, but I want and no doubt the people who are listening to this or watching this on the YouTubes know you and know your stuff. The people listening to Raw know you and know your stuff. And I think maybe that's been captured in this book in a stunning way, that you've done perhaps what you do best of all, which is, I mean, a lot of things you do well, but you take those things that the words that we hear all the time, and you've said, now just let me say it, let me put it into your ear at a different angle, so that you hear it differently. And as I understand it, that's what you've done with the Catechism. Is that a fair picture?
That's certainly the goal. I mean, that tells me you still haven't read it, which I do hope you will at some point consider doing at least 10 pages of it.
Yeah, that's right. I hope the first 10 are full of highlights.
A wise man, not to be confused with Bryan Wolfmueller, once said to me that he had a particular gift, which is not to be confused with intelligence. And that particular gift is the ability to take in some information and very quickly spit it back out again in a different order, but in a way which still makes sense. And I think both you and I do have that as a tool to be used for the sake of the church in this age. I think it's why we do podcasts. It's why we're drawn to this kind of work anyways. We like to repeat things. And for better or for worse, one of my habits in that, and this is a weakness at times as well, I think, but if you give me a task, any task, and you say, do this, I'm going to look at the way it's been done a million times before. I'm going to say, that's good. Let's see if we can do it better. And then I'm going to try to hit it from an angle and just take it to another level. And there's times where that needs to not be done, but there's times where it does. And particularly then as I experienced the first decade of teaching confirmation classes and found pretty much the same thing that everybody finds as a pastor, that you got 12-year-olds who are checked out before they get to you. I started to wonder, what's getting lost in translation here? How are we missing this? How is this boring? Because it is. Maybe it's not boring, but maybe the issue is that we're trying to cling to things that are not the text themselves, that are not technically the word of God, but which do convey the word of God. And maybe we should just work on a little translation. But that runs into a problem almost immediately. I mean, you lived through this. I lived through this. I don't know if our listeners lived through this, but it was within the last 20 years that we don't need head language, we need heart language movement was trying to get rid of doctrinal words and replace it with shenanigans, all sorts of random stuff. And that's not what I'm advocating at all. I am more advocating something along the lines with updating a translation. And I'm not even wanting to really update it permanently. I just want us to reinvigorate the words we're used to using with words we understand or words we know, words that have a ring for us. And so again, echo is the word catechism. It's the root of the word in Greek, catechoism, right? And the word cat on the front just means again. And then we would translate catechism normally as teaching or repetition or learning or something like that, maybe even doctrine. But at the heart of this thing is the idea that it's so strong, it's so valuable that when it goes out, it comes back again, right? That's what an echo is. And for whatever reason, echo as a word in English is beautiful. It's a gorgeous word. We just love the way it sounds. Whereas catechism as a word in English is really ugly. It's harsh. It just kind of rings like pain, if you can think. It's almost like a torture device. I'm going to put you in my catechism, right? It's just a weird word, right? And so to see that they're the same word, but that English is so attuned to flower. If anything, I mean, I'm an English major by heart and by nature and by degree, I guess I would say. If anything, the strength of English is that it loves to do things in different ways more than once as often as possible. It globs onto other languages and pulls their words in and just keeps adding to its vocabulary. And this is a strength, right? But it also means that if we don't continue to talk and add as English adds, then we kind of get lost and possibly become archaic entirely. Another example of something that's caused me consternation. Sorry, Bryan, I'll give you a chance to talk here eventually. That's your show.
No, you're the guest. You do what you want. You're the guest.
In the past is the word divine service, which is a 1900s Germans, non-native English speakers attempts to translate Gottesdienst. God serving us, literally. And now we have divine service. And it sounds like, if you just grow up with an English speaker, it sounds like, oh, it's like a really pretty service. It's so divine. It's like chocolate. It's a pretty service, divine service. We've lost something in translation. Not that the word's wrong. It's just that the word isn't English, really, right? And so before I worry about divine service permanently, I thought, hey, why don't I go back to the catechism and see? I didn't think this as like a plan. I was doing this in confirmation class. How can I?
What happened? Where did he go? Aha!
Yeah, we're back.
Welcome back. Wait, what the heck? It was his idea to use the. Aha!
What did you do?
I didn't do anything.
All right. I'm going to hit record again.
I look, my hands are here free. Just the video will show that I didn't touch any buttons.
Crap. What just happened?
We're asking too much of our computers, I think.
Oh, hold on. Don't do anything.
You probably have a Mac. That's the problem.
Hold on. Don't do anything. Can I stop?
I'm not touching it.
How do I get it to do more? I need another thing to crap.
Why can't I find the small I'm still recording you, by the way, here. So on my show, this is great.
Record. Shoot, you're gonna have to send me the file because mine's now not doing it because I paused it because you went away. It's always your internet connection. It always is your
in Aurora. I know my connection my bandwidth in Aurora is worse than the Cayman Islands.
There we go. Now we got you back. All right.
All right.
As I was teaching confirmation, I started, saying some of these things and then also combining them with the pictures that you'll see in the book as a way of trying to get to the visual learner as well and demonstrate the genius that God gave us in this thing we call the catechism. And then I was like, someone asked me, "You ever write this down?" And yeah, I start writing it down, and then I had to complete it. So about half the book was stuff that I didn't come up with while teaching confirmation. The other half was, that's maybe kind of boring.
I think this is it reminds me of I by the way am convinced that the pictures of in Echo, which I like, were inspired by grappling with the text. 100%. I take 100% credit. I can't take credit for the catechism.
Just as the word Echo was the title of the book 2 years before Amazon.com decided to name something Echo. So now you can't find my book unless you search for my name, which is just ridiculous. I had it first, Amazon. It's copyright infringement. So also the pictures existed long before grappling did, but that's cool. You believe that if you want.
I do. I found a little thing here. How this is Luther's preface to the small catechism. And he says, choose the form, stick with it forever. But when you preach in the presence of learned and intelligent men, exhibit your skill, maybe.
I guess.
And you present the part in varied and intricate ways and give them masterly turns as you're able. So in other words, Luther says, okay, so you take the catechism and then you build on top of it and you say it as well as you can. I mean, you want to make it as intricate, as beautiful, as relatable as possible, that our whole lives are trying to take the catechism and to pour it into people's imaginations, pour it into people's consciences, pour it into people's minds and ears, and do that work. And so I think it seems to me like that's precisely the task that you've undertaken.
Well, I'm glad to hear Luther. Somehow I've never read carefully that little bit about building on top of it. I've heard the bit about not changing the words quoted kind of ad nauseum, almost into death. In the question a little bit is, what's he really getting at there? I think what he's getting at is he's like, look, when you say the first commandment is this, use the same words. Right? Don't change that. When you say the creed in church, use the same words. And so I am in no way wanting to undo that. But you're right. What he said there, I'm trying to expound on it with all my skills.
Mad skills.
Want to take.
All right. So what did you do? What's your magic word for divine service? Did you come up with a Fiskian way of saying
that? One drives me crazy. I'll say when I'm teaching, what comes out now is God serving us, because it sounds like it rhymes with divine service, so no one gets too upset. And then it actually is just God serving us. You can't put that on a church sign though, right? It's not like worship. It doesn't quite have the ring to it. But worship's not good. Worship doesn't help us at all. And that is a main idea. So I don't know. I'm lost on that one still.
All right. Now, so walk us through. I mean, maybe let's take the 10 Commandments as a chunk, if you can, because you start with the 10 Commandments, but you don't call them the 10 Commandments. You call them the 10
important things about being creation. Yeah.
I would have known that if I would have had the book around here. Nobody sent me a review copy. I had to buy my own with my own money.
It went to Evan instead.
10 parts of being creative, being creation.
Yeah. There's another thing going on in not coming out right at the start and being like, hey, this is the catechism. Hey, Lutheran, read this book about stuff you love so much. Hey, these are the 10 Commandments, the creed, and the petitions of the Lord's Prayer. Part of the reason I'm not doing that is because I want this book to find its way into the hands of people who would never pick up something that said that. And then I want them to not know what's happening until maybe 2/3 of the way through the book. I think it's about 3/4 through the book. I finally tell you, it's like a section now. Now I tell you what I have been doing because I have to. Because in order to explain what's going on, I gotta give up the ghost a little bit. But what I really want is for people to wrestle with the theology of the 10 Commandments, without thinking, okay, here we go, 10 Commandments, I know this stuff. No, I want you to have no assumptions coming in, so you can be sort of blindsided by how deep these things are before you figure out, oh, this is the first commandment. I get it. So for that reason, some of the language is intended to help us think about it. Some of the language is intended to masquerade as just your average Protestant book that is about Lutheranism, but Protestants aren't going to pick up books about Lutheranism generally when we say, hey, it's about Lutheranism and it's better than Protestantism. Like they're not going to read it.
Are you crazy?
Right?
Every Protestant that I know is looking for that book. Hey, Lutheran, could you tell me why I'm more wronger than I think I am?
Yeah, right.
How we got to think about that a little bit. I mean, we talked about this the other day on Table Talk Radio too. Is that how to, as the people who are listening to this, I mean, like the 5 people that listen to Table Talk Radio and the 5 million people that watch the YouTube channel, how to get this book in the hands of unsuspecting evangelicals to help open up their conscience and their ears to hearing law and gospel. I mean, that's
yeah, I agree. My hope is that the book, to some extent, is going to do it itself. The trick is it's got to get in the right set of hands initially. But I think it's the kind of book that it's going to. I don't know. Maybe no one's ever going to compare this to Broken. It's such a different book than Broken in that.
Soon after this conversation cut off there, my suggestion was that people would pick up 3 copies of this book. One for your family, for your own library, for your children. One for the Christian friend who's not a Lutheran. And one who's the pagan friend who's not a Christian at all. And you'd give it to him as a gift. And you'd say, hey, read this book, and I'll take you out to coffee and talk about it. I think this is the kind of thing that we want to do. It's an easy way to put the gift of the doctrine, the teaching, into our friends and families' hands. Now, if you want to listen to the whole conversation, I think we talked for an hour. You can go over to the Rev Fisk Raw podcast. I'll try to find the link and put it down below, and you can listen to the whole conversation there. And of course, if you have any questions or if you have any comments, let me know. Comment down below, like and share, etc., etc.